Good morning, fabulous fourth grade. Today is April the 28th, 2020, and we are going to continue with online learning in our virtual classrooms. I'm going to share the screen. Again, good morning, fabulous fourth grade. Today is April the 28th, 2020, and today we're going to continue with our learning of interdependence. Interdependence is the relationship between two or more living things where each one benefits from the other. Our learning goal for this week, my turn and then your turn. I can identify the components of a food chain and a food web. I can differentiate between the two. So again, I can identify the components of a food chain and a food web, and I can differentiate between the two. All right, so we talked about plant cells and animal cells in a previous week. And then last week, we talked about populations. We talked about a group of the same type of organism is a population. When you have two separate groups of different organisms, but same organism in each group, you have a community. And then all of the communities and the living and non-living things in that area is an ecosystem. An ecosystem also has factors like the temperature, factors like the plant type, the organism types, the animals and the plants, and then also whether or not it has a large amount of rainfall, a little rainfall, and even the soil type. So again, last week we learned about the different trophic levels in an ecosystem and what kind of organisms were at each trophic level. This week we're going to learn more about their roles or their niches in an ecosystem. And we'll start off with investigating how food chains and food webs are different. Again, today we're going to talk about food chains and food webs. We're also going to talk about relationships in ecosystems. So yesterday, I asked the question, what is a food chain? And we distinguish between food chains and food webs. A food chain is a linear flow of energy starting from a producer organism and ending at an apex predator, a detrivore, or a decomposer. A food chain also shows how the organisms are related with each other by the food that they eat. Each level of a food chain represents a different trophic level. So the bottom level of the food chain, let's go forward. So this is the trophic levels. We had the producers, which are at the very, very bottom, and then they receive their sunlight energy. They use it to undergo the process of photosynthesis. The sunlight energy was captured by the chlorophyll, which is the pigment in the chloroplast. And through the process of photosynthesis, they take things from their environment, which was the three things that we talked about was water, carbon dioxide, and the sunlight energy. And then they take those three things from their environment, and inside of the plant cell, photosynthesis takes place, which is the production of glucose. So the producers were at the very bottom of the trophic level of the pyramid, the eco pyramid. They were consumed by the primary consumers. Primary consumers could either be herbivores or omnivores. And those are the organisms that only eat producers or they eat producers and other consumers. And so the herbivore was the ones that only ate the producers. The omnivores ate either the herbivores or carnivores or the producers. So they eat both plant and animal. So then those organisms were consumed by the secondary consumer, which would only be an omnivore or a carnivore. And then those organisms would be consumed either by another omnivore or a carnivore. Apex predator, which is at the very top of the trophic level, the energy levels, is the one predator that is not consumed by another organism. It would naturally die out or something would happen to it and it would die. And then its dead matter would be broken down either by a detrivore, which would either be a decomposer or a scavenger. All right, so we talked about this is a food chain. Now, more visual representation of a food chain would be this producer, the grass, the primary consumer as the grasshopper, the bluebird as a secondary consumer, a snake as the tertiary consumer, and an owl as the apex predator. When the owl passes away or dies, it is broken down by a decomposer. In this case, the decomposer is the mushroom. The decomposer takes all the dead and decaying matter and breaks it down to where it's able to be reabsorbed through the soil by the plant. So that's the food chain, and it's just a cycle of energy just transferring. All right. So a food web, on the other hand, will be multiple food chains connected. So you would have not just this food chain, you may have a rabbit eating the grass, but then you may also have a rabbit being eaten by the snake. So in that case, the snake wouldn't be the tertiary consumer. It would be the secondary consumer because the rabbit would be the primary consumer. Or you would have a field mouse eating the grass, and the field mouse would be the primary consumer, but then the apex predator would be the owl who would eat the field mouse. So in this particular food chain. And so if you had that food chain with the field mouse, and you had maybe another food chain with the rabbit, and this food chain together, all of those three individual food chains put together make a food web. And it's just an interconnected flow of energy just being transferred by different organisms consuming other organisms. All right, so let's go back. So again, we talked about food chains, and then we said each level of a food chain, represents a different trophic level. And a food web, like we just said, is a system of interlocking and independent food chains. So the food chains are connected. They're independent in that you can recognize that it's a food chain, but it becomes a food web because they're interlocking and different organisms eat other organisms for other food chains. All right. So how are food chains and food webs different? We just identified that. Well, we're going to dig deeper into food chains and food webs, and we're going to start talking about symbiotic relationships, and we're going to do that in Google Classroom. All right. So once we get into Google Classroom, today's date, you'll look for, we'll just go to Michigan today. And from Michigan, classwork. And classwork will go to interdependence. From interdependence, we'll look for today's date. Same thing in Chicago. And scholars, make sure that you're actually logging in and completing your assignments because, again, you will get points that will go towards that incentive at the end of the year. And then classwork, today's topic, interdependence, and our date. And then ND, classwork, interdependence, and today's topic. We'll click that. Tuesday. I'm going to view the assignment, scroll down, view the assignment. All right, instructions. And from instructions, study the FAB vocab. So the FAB vocab is at the bottom, and I have it where you can actually join the class. I'm already in the classroom, so it's not going to look the same for me. But you're going to join the class, and then ecosystems week 2. And you get points for doing the FAB vocab. I see when you actually do the FAB vocab. Shout out to Khalees. All right, and so our first word, let's go back. Ms. Davis was on this earlier. Our first FAB vocab is predator. Now remember, we're also talking about relationships this week. And so today, I wanted to still build off of food chains and food webs, but we're also going to talk about symbiotic relationships today. And then tomorrow, we may even have a new learning goal tomorrow. All right, so a predator is an organism that eats other organisms to live. Prey, the organism that gets eaten by the predator. This picture was just epic. All right. Our third term is biotic factor. Biotic factor are the living factors in an ecosystem. And so these are the living things, the protists, the fungus, the bacteria, the animals, and the plants. And then, so these would be considered the organisms. I just call these bacterias and funguses and protists, like protozoans. These are the non-living factors, which would help you identify an ecosystem. So the water, is it like an aquatic ecosystem, or biome, the soil, the air. How does the air feel? Is it real humid? Is it kind of murky? The minerals that are present in the soil and the amount of sunlight that that particular area receives. These are the non-living things, or the abiotic factors. Um, and then a biotic factor is, again, that's the living things. Let's go to the next one. And then the abiotic factor is the non-living parts of an ecosystem, such as the soil, the climate, and the rainfall. We just talked about that. So like in the Amazon or tropic rainforest, they'll get a lot of rainfall. And you can identify that it's a rainforest by the amount of rainfall that they receive. All right. And so then a habitat is the place or the physical place where an organism lives. And remember, we said in order for an animal to consider something its habitat, it has to be a safe place for it to have its young, has to be a safe place for it to sleep. And then it also has to be somewhere where it can find food. A niche. A niche is the position or the role of an organism in a community. So the apex predator, the niche of it is not just to hunt, but it's also a form of population control. So having a lot of tigers in an area would keep down the amount of herbivores or omnivores or even other carnivores in that particular area. Yes. All right. Ecosystem. So an ecosystem is all the living and non-living things in an environment. So this is an underwater ecosystem or an aquatic ecosystem. All right. The next term is a producer or autotroph. So a producer or an autotroph is an organism that can make its own food through the process of photosynthesis. All right. And so that's all plants. Remember, we said cactus, we said trees, we said grass, we said tulip. My tulip is an autotroph. She's an autotroph. A consumer or a heterotroph. They are organisms that eat living producers and or other consumers for food. And so this is the heterotroph or the, excuse me, the autotroph or the producer, the grass. And these are all the heterotrophs or the consumers. This is the primary consumer that eats the producer. This is the secondary consumer that eats the herbivore or the primary consumer. And this is the tertiary consumer, which is also sometimes known as the apex predator. Okay. And then symbiosis. And remember, I said we'll start talking about symbiosis today, and then we'll build on it tomorrow. So symbiosis is a relationship in which two different organisms live in close association with each other. So he's like, yo, don't touch these birds on my back. These are my birds. They eat the ticks off my back. And so the birds are like, free meal, yes, and we get protection. But whenever we see a predator, we go up in the air and we start making noise. So he will know that there's a predator somewhere nearby. This is a symbiotic relationship. So he knows a predator is nearby, like a tiger, and they are eating off of his back. But whenever they see a tiger, they start screeching and making a lot of noise. And that lets him know, oh man, it's time to go. All right. So that type of relationship is called mutualism. It's a mutualistic relationship. It's a relationship between two species in which both species benefit. This is also a mutualistic or mutualism. This is this type of relationship. The gazelle and the ostrich, they live in close quarters with each other. Even if you go to the Memphis Zoo, you will see that they have the gazelle and the ostrich living in the same habitat. Simply because out in the wild, in their natural habitat, they also live close together, because when one goes down to eat, the other is looking around. Now, if you notice that the ostrich has eyes right in front of his head, but the gazelle has eyes on the side of his head. So the gazelle can't see what's directly in front of it, but the ostrich can. However, the ostrich can't see what's on the side of it. And so they use their sight abilities to an advantage. And so, hey, when you go down, I'm gonna be up and I'm gonna be looking around. And when you go down, I'm gonna be up and I'm gonna be looking around. And so whenever they see predators, they alert each other. That's the mutualistic relationship that they have. Another example of mutualism would be us and plants. But you're gonna have to tell me how we have a mutualistic relationship. All right, commensalism. So commensalism is a relationship between two organisms in which one organism benefits and the other is unaffected. This is a commensalistic relationship. The shark and the remora fish. So when the shark is eating bits and pieces of the meat from the organism that it eats, floats off into the water beside it. The remora fish eats those bits and pieces of the leftover organism. It does not bother the shark. It just says, hey, free meal. It's like when you're going somewhere as a grown-up and your kids are like, Mom, can I have a Happy Meal? And she's like, do you have Happy Meal money? And you're like, I don't have a job. And she says, okay, well, then you can get whatever I give you. That's the same thing here. The shark is like, remora, are you going to hunt? Well, no. Okay, well, then you could just get the scraps that I give you. And the remora is like, yes, I know. All right, so the last relationship is parasitism. We don't like parasitism. It's a relationship in which one organism lives on or in a host and harms it. So right now, the form of parasitism that we have going on is the coronavirus, COVID-19 or coronavirus disease of 2019. And that's this little organism right here. And so it lives inside of its host and it harms its host. Another example of parasitism would be when you catch a common cold. Another example would be a person that has been bitten by maybe a mosquito, that it gets on you and it bites you. That's a parasite. That's a nuisance. When dogs have fleas, the dog is the host. The fleas are the parasite. When dogs get ticks, and the ticks embed themselves in the dog's skin, or even you, when you go outside and you play in the yard and you may turn a cartwheel or you get tackled with a football, then when a tick gets on you from the grass and it embeds itself in your skin and is just sitting there drinking your blood, that is a parasite. A less common form of parasitism here is when leeches attach themselves to you and they drink your blood. That's parasitism. All right. So once you do your fab vocab at least 2 times, I want you to play the match game. So you'll click the match game, and then from there, start the game. I want you to do the fab vocab 2 times, and then try to play the match game 2 times as well. So that's parasitism, mutualism. Ooh, that one right there. Let's see the other one. There, biotic factor. Oh, it must be behind me. And okay, we're struggling. Okay, we're still struggling. Boom, got it. All right. So, not sure. I know this is Kendarius, but I'm not sure who this is because your name does not look like. You have to send me a message and. Yep. So you'll have to send me a message and to tell me who you are because you didn't X-Man 194. So shout out to Kendarius, but I'm not sure who X-Men 194 is. But Kendarius, you will get those points that will go towards you getting that game card or gift card. All right, so make sure that you do the matching. When you do the Quizlet, that's just more points that we add to you in Dojo. All right, so from there we go back into Google Classroom, and then you have a Brain Pop video The Brain Pop video is symbiosis. And that's just talking about that relationship between organisms. This is your, this is your username and your password. You will not take the quiz in here, but I do have 2 thinking questions for you to answer, and they're back in Google Classroom. So yeah, so it's the same username and password for Legends. I just wanted to keep it simple. All right, so you see it logs in, it works perfectly fine, and I just want you not to do the quiz, but to watch the movie. All right, so click the link, sign in using the password and the username. They are the same, and then afterwards, I want you to complete the thinking questions that's over here, and then once you go into the thinking questions, you answer them. Where it says share on Ms. Davis' screen, it'll say turn in on your screen. When you turn this document in, that's 10 more points. So now we're at 15 points. We have the Legends, we have this thinking questions, that's 15 more points. Then when you go, I'm sorry, and we have Quizlet. And we have Quizlet. So we have Quizlet is 5, Quizlet is 5, the Brain Pop, the thinking question is 10, and then let's close this one out, turn that one in. Next you have the ReadWorks, and the ReadWorks is another 10 points. And then after that, you have the Legends, and the ReadWorks is the most important questions. Hold on a second. And it's just talking about the food chain. And you answer your question set. I'm not gonna log in, but you'll log in using your Promise Academy username and password. And remember to go all the way to the bottom of the questions and press the submit button. And I believe it's 10 points. I know that, I think that's 20 points so far. And then once you finish that, come back in and you'll go to the Legends of Learning, sign in using your Google, again, your Google account. If you are in Google Classroom and you sign in, you should be able to just sign in immediately with your student login. And I've already created a playlist, and so you just use that same username and password here, the playlist, same one, and you'll be able to access the Legends of Learning. That's 5 more points. So if I'm not mistaken, let's add them up. This is 10 points. This is 5 points. No, this is 10 points. This is 5 points. So that's 15. Quizlet is another 5. That's 20. And Legends is another 5. That's 25. That's 25 points just for Miss Davis' class. Just for Miss Davis' class. Just for Miss Davis' class. So 25 points, and you need 275 to get the gift card. If you log on every day and do Miss Davis work, that's 25 points in just one day. And Miss Davis typically has the same type of assignments every day. I may have something extra, but 25 points in 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, that's 100. On Friday, that's 125. By next week, next Friday, 125 and 125 is 250. You do the math. You still have math and ELA, and that's 250 just from Ms. Davis' class. Scholars, y'all better get on it. Y'all better get on it. All right, so again, let's do a real quick recap. Study those fab vocabs 2 times, and then after that, come back in, watch the Brain Pop video. Username and password are the same. Username and password, they are the same. After you watch the Brain Pop video, thinking question, symbiosis. It's a relationship between 2 organisms. All right, and then after you do your thinking question, I want you to come in and do your ReadWorks. Make sure you press submit so that I see that you actually completed it and I can give you those points. All right, and then after that, make sure that you do the Legends of Learning. So fun. Oh my God, it's so fun. And then that's 25 points. Khalees Jessup got 25 points yesterday. Xavier Hamilton got 25 points. Y'all got this, scholars. All right. So again, do your work, log in to Legends and get your Legends going. May the force be with you. Make sure that you're logging into Compass Learning daily and also logging into Zearn, completing those assignments. If you have any questions, your teachers are here from you from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. That's it. You can message us by email, you can message us by Dojo, or even Google Classroom. Um, do your work. Do your work. It's the most amazing incentive, and I know how some of you love to play games. And so, and then even if you don't want to play games, there are other types of gift cards that you could possibly. All right. Have a wonderful day, promise. I love you guys. Bye.